I always thought she was just my strict boss. Until that night, when she asked me to stay late. My name is Ethan Price, 28, single, and 3 months into my new job at a boutique marketing firm in downtown Chicago. I was trying to climb the corporate ladder, one coffee-stained presentation at a time. And at the top of that ladder stood her, Celeste Langford, my boss, sharp, elegant, British, mid-40s, and totally unapproachable. She was the kind of woman who never let her lipstick fade, who walked into a room and made even the walls stand straighter. Everyone at the office either feared her, fantasized about her, or both. I unfortunately did both. She had this way of talking, like every word was weighed, every pause designed. She never smiled unless it served a purpose. And when she looked at you, it felt like she was calculating how many seconds of her life you were worth. Still, there was something about her. One Friday evening, when the office was beginning to empty out, and I was just wrapping up a last-minute proposal, Celeste appeared at the entrance of my cubicle. "Ethan," she said, her voice smooth and low, "can you stay for a bit longer? I need your input on a client brief." She never asked. She told, "Sure," I replied, trying not to sound too eager. Everyone else left. The sun dipped behind the buildings. The soft glow of desk lamps replaced the overhead fluorescence, and the open office turned into a quiet maze of shadows and whispers. She motioned for me to follow her into the glass-walled boardroom. My heart thumped. On the table, there were no briefs, no charts, just 2 glasses of wine and a single open file. I blinked. "I find wine helps with creative thinking," she said with a rare sly smile. "And I want your honest thoughts on this campaign. Not corporate talk, your thoughts." I sat. All right. We started talking about branding, emotion, messaging. Then somehow we drifted. She asked about where I grew up, my childhood dog, whether I believed in love or if I thought we just settle. The wine disappeared slowly. The file was long forgotten. I looked at her, really looked at her. Behind the steely armor was a woman who seemed tired, not broken, but worn, like she'd been too strong for too long. "I'm not as cold as they say," she murmured. "I never thought you were," I said. Her eyes lingered on mine for a moment longer than they should have. "Careful, Ethan. That kind of answer can be dangerous." My throat tightened. Was this really happening? Before I could say anything else, she stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the city. "You remind me of someone I used to know," she said. "Young, passionate, believed you could change the world with one campaign." "Did he?" She turned. "No, he changed me instead." The silence that followed was so thick it nearly swallowed me. She walked back slowly and stood behind my chair. "I should let you go," she whispered. "But I won't." My pulse quickened. Her fingers brushed my shoulder, lightly, briefly, then withdrew. "Go home, Ethan," she said. "We'll talk more on Monday." I stood up, heart pounding, eyes on hers. "Good night, Celeste." "Good night, Ethan." As I walked out of the boardroom, I felt like I had stepped into something far bigger than a late-night meeting. A game had begun, and I wasn't sure if I was a player or just the pawn. Monday morning came, and I expected things to be awkward. But Celeste walked into the office, just like she always did. Perfectly composed, unreadable, distant. You'd never guess we'd spent an hour talking like old lovers, or future ones. I tried to focus on work, but every time I caught a glimpse of her behind the glass walls of her office, my mind rewound to Friday night. At 2:17 p.m., I got an email. No subject line, just a message. "Dinner, tonight, 7 p.m. La Rose, West Loop. Don't be late. That was it. No name, no explanation, but it didn't need one. La Rose was a romantic French-Italian fusion place. Low lighting, the kind of place you reserve weeks in advance. What was this? I'd arrived at 6:59, heart pounding. The hostess smiled as if she'd been expecting me. She's already here. Celeste sat in a dim corner, candlelight dancing off her wine glass. She wasn't wearing her usual blazer and pencil skirt. Tonight, she wore a deep blue silk dress. Simple, elegant, and dangerous. "You're punctual," she said, not looking up from her glass. "You're not surprised? I'm not." The waiter came. She ordered red wine for both of us, without asking. She somehow always knew what people needed before they did. For a few minutes, we made small talk. Nothing too deep. The food arrived. We ate slowly, savoring each bite. And then, without warning, she leaned in and asked, "Why haven't you asked me why we're here?" "Because I don't want to ruin it," I replied. That made her smile. A real one this time. "You're different, Ethan. Most men your age would have either panicked or tried to impress me. And have I done either?" "No," she said, her voice softer. "You've intrigued me." Silence again, but it wasn't empty. It was charged. Then she asked, "Do you always fall for authority figures?" I choked slightly on my wine. "Is that what this is?" She tilted her head. "Isn't it?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "I just know I haven't stopped thinking about you since Friday." Her eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment, the roles of boss and employee dissolved. We were just a man and a woman, circling something they both wanted, but weren't sure how to reach. "I've built walls, Ethan," she said quietly. "For years, I didn't think anyone would ever get close enough to even see them. Then let me in," I said, almost whispering. She didn't respond right away. "I don't do casual," she said. "And I don't do messy." "What do you do?" "I test people." She stood up. "Come with me." I followed her outside into the cool Chicago night. Her driver opened the back door of a sleek black car. She turned to me and said, "One drink, at my place, no expectations." I hesitated for half a second, then nodded. The ride was quiet. We didn't touch, but something hung in the air. Tension, curiosity, the edge of something dangerous. Her apartment was as I imagined. Minimalist, high-rise, and perfect. Glass everywhere, giving full view of the skyline. She poured whiskey this time, handing me a glass. "To honesty," she said, raising hers. "To whatever this is," I replied. We clinked glasses. She sat on the couch, crossed her legs, and motioned for me to join her. And then she said something I wasn't prepared for. "I'm terrified, Ethan." "Of me?" "No," she said, eyes soft, "of how easy it is to want you." The room was quiet, except for the sound of the city below. Car horns, distant music, the hum of life still going. But in that moment, her apartment felt like a different world. One where the rules we lived by from 9 to 5 didn't apply. Celeste sat beside me, whiskey in her hand, eyes focused somewhere between the skyline and her thoughts. "I don't do this," she said softly. "I don't blur lines. I don't invite employees to dinner. And I certainly don't let them into my home." "Then why me?" I asked. She looked at me, really looked at me, like she was trying to see something behind my face. "Because you didn't chase me like a fantasy. You listened. You made me feel human." I could feel her defenses flickering, melting maybe. I reached out slowly, taking her hand in mine. She didn't pull away. We sat like that for a while. No rush, no seduction, just presence. And then finally she leaned her head onto my shoulder. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I was married once. Long ago, he wanted the version of me that people fear in the office, the image, the control, but he never cared for the woman underneath. I said nothing, just held her hand tighter. After a long pause, she turned to face me. "Are you afraid of me, Ethan?" "No," I said. "But I'm afraid of what happens next." She gave a half smile. "So am I." Then slowly, deliberately, she kissed me. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't wild. It was soft. Like we were both asking permission at every second. Like we both knew how many unspoken things that kiss carried. But just before it went any further, she stopped. She rested her forehead against mine and whispered, "We can't do this unless we're honest. About everything. Because this could ruin us. Or change everything." I nodded, so we talked. And we told each other the truth. About fears, about control, about loneliness, about how success often meant sacrificing love, about why she became the woman she was, and why I saw through it. By the time the night grew old and the city had gone quiet, we were wrapped in each other. Not just physically, but emotionally. She wasn't my boss anymore. At least not in that moment. She was just Celeste, and I was. Just a man who saw her not for her power, but for her pain, her beauty, her complexity. 1 month later, things didn't collapse. In fact, they became stronger. She called HR, disclosed the relationship, took a temporary step back from directly overseeing my department. Her boundaries remained, but now they were honest ones. We still had our moments of tension. Our power dynamic didn't disappear overnight, but we learned to navigate it together. And every night after office hours, when the emails stopped and the boardrooms went dark, we found our own space. One that wasn't about roles or rules. Just two people, imperfect, intense, and finally unafraid to fall.